Hey everybody, it's Trevor here with the channel where every day is range day, and in this week's video we're going to be going over a couple considerations that I like to think through whenever I'm selecting new defensive carry ammo. Let's check it out. Now before we get into a couple of the considerations that I'd like to talk about today, I would like to point out that I'm not sponsored by any of the ammo companies that I'm going to be talking about here today. I'm not here to tell you which type of defensive carry ammo is the best one for you, or to recommend hollow points versus not hollow points or anything like that. I'm just going to talk through a couple key factors that I like to think about whenever I'm selecting some new carry ammo. And the three main considerations that we're going to go through are 1, the reliability of the ammo, 2, familiarity, and 3, the overall effectiveness or / ballistics. But before we get started with number 1, it is worth to mention that shot placement is far and away more important than any of the main considerations that I'll be talking about throughout the rest of the video. Accurate shot placements, both with respect to what you are wanting to hit and not wanting to hit, are way more important than what kind of ammo you're going to pick, be it hollow points, plus P, whatever. None of that matters as much as being able to hit what you want and avoid hitting what you don't want to. That being said, the best way to improve shot placement is of course practice, and it is important to remember that in a stressful situation where you're caught off guard, you're more than likely not going to be rising to your best potential and becoming the best shooter that you can be on your best day at the range. You're going to fall to the floor of your skill level more often than not, so it's important to raise that as much as you can with consistent practice and range time. But now, getting into my main considerations for selecting defensive carry ammo, we'll hit number 1, which is of course the overall reliability. This is as simple as just picking good, clean ammo that you're confident is manufactured well and that will run through your gun smoothly. Normally when I'm just plinking at the range and practicing, I usually just run the cheapest steel ammo that I can find, and it's not a huge deal if the ammo's bad or causes a malfunction while I'm on the range. I'm not exactly in a life or death situation there. But that being said, it is worth to mention that you probably shouldn't carry the cheapest steel case, dirty plinking ammo that you can find, and rely upon that for your defensive carry situation. Now it's better than nothing, and this Winchester Steel Forge is just what I happen to have, but you probably want to select something a little better than the dirtiest, cheapest steel case ammo that you can find, be it something like Winchester or Tula. It's good for the range, probably not what you should pick for defensive carry ammo. That being said, a good bare minimum in reliability for your carry ammo should be a well-known brand of quality manufactured brass case ammunition in the caliber that matches your gun, of course. I have a couple boxes of this Winchester service grade 9mm, just 115 grain full metal jacket ammo. Nothing special about it, not fancy or overcharged, but it is reliable, it's clean, and it should function in just about anything. And kind of tagging along with the reliability consideration is just buying a little extra ammo if it's the first time you've carried it in your weapon. If you're buying something special like this Fort Scott or maybe something from Hornady that's a little different than your typical range ammo, just so that you have enough to fill your mags. For me, it's a Glock 19 mag, and this 20 rounder here, +1. Make sure you have enough, of course, for what you're going to carry, and then buy just a little bit more ammo so you can run a mag or two through your gun just to make sure it likes it and cycles the ammo reliably. If you have a modern handgun, this shouldn't be too big of an issue, but it does give me some peace of mind that all this expensive ammo I just bought will reliably cycle through my gun. Up next, after reliability, the second factor that I usually like to consider is overall familiarity. You can be like, Trevor, what do you mean familiarity? I'm just going to buy the super expensive +++P 269 grain Magic 9mm ammo that splits into 3 projectiles that deal incendiary damage and are armor penetrating all at once. It's the best bullet ever. What else could I need on top of that? And while something like that would be pretty cool to own, apart from being expensive, it's probably just not what you shoot every day, so you're not familiar with it. The most common real life consideration that I could allude to with this is the grain of the round. Most 9mm plinking ammo that I have is this Winchester or some of this other brass case Winchester's 115 grain projectile. As you shoot more and more of a specific loading in a given round, you become more familiar with how the recoil impulse feels, both from the first shot, how it affects your grip, and how follow-up shots feel. If you decide to carry defensive ammo that's +P 124 grain or something loaded even a little hotter, it's going to feel very, very different if you're not used to shooting it every day. If you can afford to shoot that ammo more frequently and you practice with it a lot, you'll probably be good to go. But since I mainly shoot the 115 grain projectiles, I tend to match my defensive carry ammo to that as well. For the past year or so, I've carried the Fort Scott munitions ammunitions, TUI rounds, 9mm, 115 grain projectiles. Again, it matches what I shoot most often at the range. Since I've been carrying this for about a year, I've decided it's time to probably change the rounds out, which is also something to help with your reliability. But again, I selected another 115 grain hollow point round from Hornady, their critical defense. Again, 9mm Luger, 115 grain. It matches most closely to what I'm most familiar with shooting on the range, so if I would have to defend myself in a situation that catches me off guard, at least I won't be thrown off by an unfamiliar or overly aggressive recoil impulse. Again, you're gonna fall to your skill floor, not rise to the highest skill ceiling that you could possibly attain on your best day at the range. And it probably is a better idea overall to shoot something that you're most familiar with. Some people even practice with just plain old service grade regular 9mm ammo, and that's what they carry too. They know exactly how it's gonna feel, and they know that they will get the best shot placement for the first shot and follow-up shots because they're so familiar with that type of ammo, how it feels under recoil, and what to expect from firing the weapon with it in general. So for the sake of familiarity, I like to stick with 115 grain projectiles. It's just what I shoot the most. And moving on to number 3 is overall effectiveness / ballistics. Now again, shot placement is way more important than anything we're gonna be talking about here, but this kind of goes into the choice of, do you get something that's just a plain old 9mm round, something like a hollow point that might not over penetrate as much, or a Scott TUI, which is more designed for maximum damage, but over penetration may be an issue. A main factor to consider here is of course your environment and where you're most likely to need your weapon to defend yourself. If you don't carry your gun around you too much in public and you just have it for a home defense gun, you should probably tailor your choice of ammo to where you live. If it's an apartment complex, you might share a lot of thin walls with a bunch of other people, and in that kind of environment, over penetration is probably a very big issue to you. So something like a Fort Scott TUI or anything that would have a lot of energy behind it and go through a bunch of walls is probably not a super good idea. In that case, maybe a larger, slower caliber like 45 could also be a consideration, but also hollow points. These would expand and slow down a bit more as they begin to go through walls or other things, and that would help to reduce the risk of over penetration. That's part of why I switched from the Fort Scott TUIs to the Hornady critical defense hollow points here. I've moved to more of a neighborhood setting. People are kind of close by, but I also tend to carry my firearm with me out a lot in public, sometimes crowded areas like supermarkets and the like. So I wanted to reduce the risk of over penetration a little bit from the TUIs and kind of reduce that risk with the Hornady critical hollow points. They're still really effective from the ballistic standpoint, but the risk of over penetration is still reduced. But it's important to consider your own environment, where you're most likely to need or defend yourself with your firearm, and just think a little bit about what you're after from a ballistic standpoint versus the risk of over penetration. But again, none of these matter as much as having good shot placement. Things like ballistic performance or potential over penetration won't matter if your shot placement, both in what you're looking to hit and looking to not hit, are top notch. Well, that looks like it's going to be it for the video today, guys, on a couple of my main considerations that I like to think about when selecting defensive carry ammo. Of course, shot placement is the most important characteristic of all of this, but I also like to think about the reliability, familiarity, and general effectiveness of the rounds that I'm choosing to carry for defensive purposes. Of course, choosing good, clean, reliable ammo that you know is going to cycle through your weapon is a pretty basic factor to consider, but it is very important nonetheless. But it's also important to select something that you're familiar with, so that in times of emergency where you're kind of caught off guard, you're not going to be surprised by excessive recoil caused from overly charged rounds that you're not normally used to firing. It's also why I like to keep my defensive carry ammo consistent at 115 grain 9mm, because that's what I shoot most often with. And last but not least is of course overall effectiveness and ballistics. Of course you want the rounds to be effective, but if your shot placement is good, that won't matter as much. Still, it's pretty important to consider risks of over penetration and the overall effectiveness of the rounds you're selecting, just based on which environments you find yourself in most often, and for the sake of ensuring that you have adequate stopping power. If you like this video, feel free to leave a like down below. If you have any questions about the different ammo types or concepts we talked about today, feel free to leave them down below in the comments, and feel free to leave your own favorite carry ammo options in the comments also. We'd love to hear from you. And as always, make sure to subscribe to the channel, where every day is range day. Thank you for watching.